Welcome to the deep dive. Ever feel like you're, doing everything right, eating healthy or what you think is healthy, trying to get enough sleep, but you're still feeling kind of sluggish, maybe a bit moody, or always fighting off cravings? Well, based on the stuff you sent us, it seems like we need to look, deeper, like right into your gut.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack this really surprising connection between your gut health and honestly pretty much everything else, your energy, mood, immunity, even how you feel about food.
Right. And we're aiming to get past the trendy quick fixes.
Exactly. This is about understanding the basics, the science of what's actually going on inside.
And I'm here to help sort of make sense of it all. We'll explore what gut health really is and why people keep calling it our second brain.
That second brain idea is fascinating.
It is. We'll get into the trillions of microbes living inside you, the whole good versus bad bacteria thing, and importantly, how the food you eat every day literally fuels this internal world. Plus, we'll touch on lifestyle factors too, sleep, exercise, even when you eat. It all plays a role.
So the goal is really to pull out some actionable stuff, right? Things people can actually use.
Exactly. Empowering choices for, better overall well-being. So let's kick things off with that fundamental question. What is gut health, really? And why this second brain concept?
Yeah, where does that come from? Because it's way more than just like digesting lunch, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Science is really catching up to this. The gut, especially that community of microorganisms living there, it's acting like a central command center. It influences so much more than just digestion.
A command center, okay.
Yeah, there's this huge surge in scientific interest around the gut microbiome. That's the technical term for that massive population of bacteria, fungi, viruses, all those microbes, mainly in your large intestine.
Right, the microbiome.
And it's not just sitting there passively. It's actively involved in so many processes, which is why second brain actually fits quite well.
Okay, so this command center, the second brain, how does it actually connect? How does this world of microbes talk to our actual brain?
Well, it's basically a constant two-way communication highway. We call it the gut-brain axis.
Gut-brain axis.
Right. Your gut actually has its own complex nervous system, the enteric nervous system. It can kind of run things on its own somewhat independently.
Yeah.
But beyond that, the bacteria in your gut, when they break down food, they produce all sorts of chemical signals, like little messages.
Okay.
And these signals travel. They go up to your brain through different routes. A big one is the vagus nerve, but also through the bloodstream, even involving the immune system.
So wait, these little chemical messages from our gut bacteria, they're actually nudging our mood, affecting what foods we suddenly want. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. For example, a huge amount of serotonin, that's the neurotransmitter really involved in mood, right?
Yeah, the happy chemical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of it is actually produced in the gut. And the gut microbiota heavily influence that production.
No.
Yeah. So the health and balance of your gut bacteria can directly impact how you feel emotionally. It could explain why sometimes people feel their mood lift when they change their diet.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just all in your head, it's in your gut too.
Pretty much.
Now, you mentioned trillions of these residents. Who exactly are we talking about living in there?
Well, primarily it's bacteria. Trillions upon trillions. They actually outnumber our own human cells by quite a bit.
Seriously?
Yeah. And most of them hang out in the large intestine. It forms this incredibly complex, dynamic ecosystem, like a bustling inner city.
A bustling inner city. I like that. So is my inner city the same as yours? Is this microbiota the same for everyone?
Oh, not at all. It's highly individual, super unique. It's shaped by your genes, sure, but also your diet, starting way back in infancy, your environment, your lifestyle. It's really like your fingerprint.
A gut fingerprint. Okay.
Yeah.
And what are these microbes actually doing for us? Are they just passengers?
No, they're essential workers. They help us digest things our own bodies can't handle, especially complex carbohydrates like fiber.
Ah, fiber. We'll come back to that.
Definitely. They also play a huge role in training and regulating our immune system. About 70% of your immune system is located around your gut.
70%. Wow.
And, like we touched on, they even produce certain vitamins for us, vitamin K, some B vitamins, essential stuff.
So they're definitely earning their keep. Now, we always hear about good bacteria and bad bacteria. Is it really like a war down there, good versus evil?
It's less Star Wars, more like maintaining ecological balance.
Okay.
Certain types are beneficial because they do those vital jobs, like fermenting fiber into short-chain fatty acids, which are amazing for gut health and beyond.
Short-chain fatty acids, got it.
Other bacteria aren't necessarily bad if they're in small numbers,
Yeah.
but if they start to overgrow and throw off the balance, that's the problem. We call that state dysbiosis.
Dysbiosis.
Right.
Heard that term.
And that imbalance, that dysbiosis, can lead to inflammation, digestive problems, all sorts of issues.
So it's the imbalance that's the real enemy here. What kind of things tip the scales towards dysbiosis?
Well, several things. But diet is a huge one. A diet that's consistently low in fiber but high in refined sugars and processed foods, that tends to feed the less helpful bacteria.
Okay.
Also, chronic stress is a big factor. Infections. And certain medications, especially antibiotics, can really disrupt that delicate balance.
Let's zero in on food for a bit. You said fiber is like the preferred meal for the good bacteria. Why is fiber so critical?
Okay, think of it like this. Fiber, you find it in veggies, fruits, whole grains, legumes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies don't really digest it much higher up, so it travels down to the large intestine pretty much intact. That's where the beneficial gut microbes get to feast on it.
Ah, okay.
And when they ferment that fiber, they produce those amazing short-chain fatty acids we mentioned. Those acids nourish the cells lining your colon. They help control inflammation. They can even positively impact your metabolism.
So fiber is basically like premium fuel for our good gut bugs.
Got it. What happens then when we eat a lot of, say, white bread, sugary cereal, stuff like that, refined carbs?
Right. Those refined carbs and sugars, they get absorbed much, much earlier in the digestive process, mostly in the small intestine,
Okay.
which means very little of it reaches the large intestine where the majority of those beneficial microbes live. So you're essentially starving your good guys down below.
Oh.
And at the same time, you might be feeding other microbes that thrive on those simple sugars, potentially letting them gain the upper hand. This can directly contribute to that dysbiosis, shifting the balance the wrong way.
That really puts choosing whole grain over white bread in a different light, doesn't it?
It really does. Every meal is an opportunity to feed your gut microbes.
It sounds like this whole gut community gets set up really early in life. How does that work?
Yeah, the foundations are definitely laid down right from the start. Even the way you're born matters.
Well, vaginal birth exposes the baby to microbes from the mother's birth canal. That helps seed the infant's gut. A C-section delivery results in a different initial microbial exposure.
Interesting.
And breastfeeding is also super important. Breast milk contains beneficial bacteria itself, plus special prebiotics food for the good bacteria. Then, as a child grows, eats different foods, interacts with the environment, their microbiome continues to develop and diversify.
So those early years really set the trajectory for gut health later on.
They definitely play a significant role in building a resilient gut ecosystem.
Okay, beyond diet and birth, what about other lifestyle things? Does exercise do anything for the gut?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's growing evidence showing regular physical activity has a really positive effect.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, studies suggest exercise can increase the diversity of your gut bacteria, which is generally a good sign, and promote the growth of beneficial species. It also seems to have this sort of anti-inflammatory effect that benefits the gut environment, too.
Huh. Another point for staying active. Now, we talked about sugar feeding the less helpful bacteria. What's the longer-term impact if someone consistently eats a diet high in sugar and processed foods?
Well, it can easily become a kind of vicious cycle.
How so?
Those foods don't just feed the less beneficial bacteria, allowing them to multiply, but those microbes can then produce byproducts that actually increase inflammation in the gut. And get this, they might even send signals back to the brain that ramp up cravings for more of those same sugary processed foods.
You're kidding. They're like lobbying for their own food source.
It's almost like that. They want the stuff that helps them thrive, which often isn't what helps you thrive. It really can trap you in a negative loop.
Wow, hijacking our cravings. That's intense. Okay, this leads to something else I found really interesting in the source's meal timing. How does when we eat affect our gut?
Right, this is fascinating. Our digestive system, like loads of other body functions, runs on a circadian rhythm, our internal 24-hour clock.
Okay, the body clock.
And generally, our digestion is primed to be more efficient during daylight hours. Eating late at night kind of messes with that natural rhythm.
How does it mess with it?
Well, when you eat a big meal close to bedtime, your digestive system is forced to work hard when it should be in a rest and repair phase. This can lead to poorer digestion, sure, but also potentially increased inflammation, and it can negatively affect blood sugar control and hormone balance.
So the same meal eaten late might have a worse effect than eaten earlier.
Studies suggest exactly that. Eating the same calories at different times of day can lead to different metabolic outcomes.
Okay, that's a big one. So practically speaking, what's a good rule of thumb for meal timing?
A good general guideline is to try and finish eating at least 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep.
2 to 3 hours.
Yeah. So for a lot of people, that might mean wrapping up dinner by, say, 7:03 or 8:00 p.m. Giving your body that digestive break before sleep can really make a difference over the long haul.
That's really clear, actionable advice. Okay, speaking of sleep, how important is sleep itself for gut health?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial. Sleep is when your entire body does its major repair work, and that includes repairing the lining of your gut.
Oh, okay.
If you're chronically sleep deprived, that repair process gets disrupted. This might contribute to increased intestinal permeability. You sometimes hear it called leaky gut,
Leaky gut, right.
and that can lead to low-grade chronic inflammation. Plus, poor sleep messes with your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin.
Makes you want to eat more junk.
Exactly, which then indirectly affects your food choices and consequently your gut microbiome. And some studies even suggest lack of sleep can directly alter the composition of your gut bacteria, often favoring the less beneficial types.
So it all circles back.
It really does. Aiming for that sweet spot of 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night is vital for gut health, just like it is for overall health.
It really drives home how interconnected everything is: diet, sleep, stress. Now, another potential disruptor we mentioned earlier, antibiotics. What's the deal there?
Right, antibiotics, they're lifesavers when you have a serious bacterial infection, no question.
Definitely.
But the way they work is by targeting bacteria. And unfortunately, they're not smart bombs. They're more like broad-spectrum pesticides. They kill off the bad guys causing the infection, but they take out a lot of the good, beneficial bacteria in your gut at the same time.
Collateral damage.
Exactly. It can lead to a significant drop in the diversity and the sheer number of your gut microbes.
So it's like hitting a reset button, but maybe wiping out too much. How long does it take to bounce back from that, and what are the risks?
Recovery can be slow. We're talking weeks, sometimes even months. And in some cases, the microbiome might not ever fully return to its original state before the antibiotics.
Wow.
This disruption can leave you more vulnerable to other infections like C. diff, and it can contribute to ongoing digestive issues or imbalances.
Okay, so it underscores the importance of only using antibiotics when they're genuinely needed for bacterial infections, right?
Right.
Not for viruses like the cold or flu.
Absolutely critical.
Mhm.
Using them unnecessarily just contributes to the problem and antibiotic resistance.
What about probiotics? People often take them after antibiotics. Do they actually help rebuild things?
Well, probiotics, which are live beneficial bacteria, can be helpful in certain situations. They might help repopulate the gut with specific strains, maybe reduce the risk of antibiotic-associated diarrhea.
Okay.
But the sheer diversity of a healthy gut microbiome is immense. A typical probiotic supplement might contain, a few billion bacteria from maybe 5, 10, maybe 20 strains. It's just a drop in the ocean compared to the trillions and hundreds of species naturally present. So they can't fully restore all that lost diversity on their own.
Ah, I see. So they're not a magic bullet for recovery.
Not really. Probably the most important thing after a course of antibiotics is to really focus on your diet. Eating plenty of fiber-rich foods, lots of different plants. That helps feed the beneficial bacteria that survived and encourages them to grow back.
Feed the survivors. That makes sense. Okay, let's circle back to macronutrients again. We talked carbs, now protein. How do different protein sources stack up for gut health?
Good question. Plant-based proteins, think beans, lentils, tofu, nuts, seeds, they usually come packaged with fiber.
Right, the fiber again.
Exactly. So diets rich in these tend to support a healthier, more diverse microbiome because you're feeding the good guys. Animal proteins, on the other hand, like meat, poultry, fish, they don't contain fiber.
Okay.
Now, lean animal proteins can absolutely be part of a healthy diet, but some research suggests that very high intakes of red meat, especially processed red meat like sausages and bacon, might be linked to less favorable shifts in gut bacteria. There's also the production of compounds like TMAO, which some studies link to cardiovascular risk.
TMAO.
Trimethylamine N-oxide. It's produced when gut bacteria metabolize certain compounds found in red meat and eggs. So overall, prioritizing plant-based protein sources more often seems beneficial for the gut.
Leaning into plants seems to be a recurring theme here.
It really does keep coming back to that, doesn't it?
Okay, what about the third macronutrient, fats? Are all fats bad or good or bad?
Definitely not created equal when it comes to the gut, or health in general. The type of fat really matters.
Okay.
Healthy, unsaturated fats, the kind you find in olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, these are generally great. They support overall health and seem to support a healthy gut environment too.
They're good fats.
Right. On the other flip side, high intakes of saturated fats, especially from processed sources, and definitely artificial trans fats. Those can promote inflammation and potentially have a negative impact on the gut microbiome balance.
So focus on whole food sources of fat, mostly unsaturated.
That's the best approach.
Yeah.
Think less fried food and processed snacks, more avocado toast, nuts, seeds, olive oil dressings.
Makes sense. Okay, one last potential gut irritant.
Yeah.
Alcohol. What's its impact?
Yeah, alcohol can be pretty rough on the gut.
Oh.
It can directly irritate the lining of the stomach and intestines.
Ouch.
It can also increase that gut permeability, the lakiness we talked about, and it definitely disrupts the microbiome balance, often letting less beneficial bacteria overgrow. Plus, it puts extra strain on the liver, which is obviously crucial for detoxification. Even moderate amounts of alcohol can contribute to inflammation, including in the gut.
So even just a couple of drinks regularly could be impacting gut health.
It potentially could, yes. Reducing or avoiding alcohol altogether is generally a good move if you're focusing on improving your gut health.
Wow, okay. This has been incredibly thorough, so much connected to our gut. If we had to boil it down, what are the absolute key takeaways for listeners wanting to nurture their gut health?
Okay, let's summarize. First, remember that your gut really does act like a second brain. It's constantly talking to your main brain, influencing mood, cravings, the works.
Right, the gut-brain axis.
Exactly.
Sure.
Second, it's all about balance in that microbiome. You want to feed your good bacteria.
Right.
Add lots of fiber from a wide variety of plant foods. Diversity is key.
Eat the rainbow, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Third, prioritize those complex carbs, whole grains, veggies, legumes over simple sugars and heavily processed foods. You're feeding different microbial communities with those choices. Fourth, think about when you eat. Try to align your meals with your body's natural rhythm, generally eating earlier in the evening. Give your digestion that overnight break.
The 2-3 hour rule before bed?
Yep. Fifth, prioritize quality sleep. That 7-9 hours is crucial for gut repair. Sixth, manage stress as best you can. Chronic stress hits the gut hard. Seventh, regular physical activity helps.
Okay.
Eighth, be cautious with antibiotics necessary sometimes, but understand their impact. And finally, limit stuff that irritates the gut, like excessive alcohol.
That's a great list.
And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making consistent small steps towards these basics. Progress, not perfection.
Fantastic summary. That makes it feel much more achievable. Thank you so much. This has been incredibly insightful. Really demystified a lot.
It was my pleasure. Happy to share this information. And just one crucial reminder for everyone listening. This conversation is for general information, kind of educational purposes. It's not a substitute for professional medical advice. Always talk to your own doctor or healthcare provider about your specific health situation and concerns.
Absolutely essential advice. Thank you for adding that. And thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of gut health. We really hope this gives you some practical tools and maybe some motivation to take those small, consistent steps. Remember, personalized advice comes from your doctor. We'll be back soon with another deep dive. For now, maybe just consider, could that afternoon slump or those persistent cravings actually be starting in your gut? Something to think about.